What's what look like?
What are you looking at?
He's doing video of
Yeah,
the kitty.
videoing the little kitty here.
And I think I've told you, I'll tell you now and then I'll tell you again when you put it on the tape, but, let's see. She was 16 when they married, and I guess she got pregnant pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And my father was her first child.
Oh.
And neither one of them were very experienced or knowledgeable about having a baby.
Uh-oh.
And she, one night, got a tummy ache. Well, they just thought it was a tummy ache. They didn't worry about it, you know, just something that came on. Well, it kept getting worse. And finally, they decided she must be in labor. And so Grandpa sent the hired man over to go to town to get the doctor. Well, he didn't get back, and the pains got worse. And so he decided he would go over to the neighbor's house, and I imagine that it was not real close, you know, because they lived farther apart in those days.
Mm-hmm.
He'd go over to the neighbor's house and get the neighbor lady to come over and help Grandma. And he had to walk because he sent the hired man off
On the horse.
field.
Oh, me.
And
I didn't see this coming.
yeah. So he got back as soon as he could with her, and when they got back, the baby was already alive. They were already alive.
Boy, oh boy. Poor grandma.
Yeah.
All by herself.
All by herself.
16, 17 years old.
17 years old.
Oh,
Wow.
mercy. Mm.
So that was my dad's arrival in this world. And I remember her telling and laughing about how Pop's cousin, who was about 5 or 6 years older than he was about that old when Pop was born, and they came over, the family came over to see the new baby, and Floyd, who was Floyd Cook, he was standing in the hall and looking in the room where Grandma and the baby were. And Grandma said, "Come on in, Floyd, and see the baby." And he says, "I can see him from here."
You're not going to trap me in there.
Might be contagious, I guess.
Well,
Woohoo.
Ooh, cookies.
can you pick up those flowers, somebody, Zach?
On June 30, 1944, I moved into the dormitory in Loma Linda. And I think I've already told you my two roommates were Shorty Odekirk and Albert Olson. But we slept in the basement. And one night I'd been to L.A., came back, and the whole group of us came in at the same time, about 12:30, and we went down and got in bed. And just as we got in bed, one of our classmates who'd been reared in China sat up in the middle of his bed and started talking Chinese. And he had done that several times before and waked everybody up. So we just silently, I got up and started toward his bed. Others joined me, and we just picked him up, carried him out,
Bed and all.
bed and all, out on the front lawn, under the flagpole, came back and went to bed. The next morning, he waked up out there, and he never slept downstairs again. We were very fortunate because as long as we were in medical school, by July 1, we were exempt from the Army. And we had classes in the morning, and I worked in the afternoon and in the evening.
They called your class a preemie class because it started early that way.
Because it started early, yes.
Yeah, and they didn't have enough subjects to keep them busy all day during those
Right.
few months.
We even took some nurses courses. And Margie Whitney sat in and tutored. And we censored some of our classes.
Hmm.
And we had a good time there. But in our anatomy lab, which was the first and most important program of the quarter, of the semester, we had Bo Ying Watt and Kenneth Ridgely on one side and Ekvall and myself on the other side of our cadaver. We made a rule that if anybody talked about anything except anatomy, they had to buy the rest of us malts. So we didn't get very many malts. We had very good dissection though, and everybody was always coming around our table to see certain nerves and certain blood vessels because we were very careful in our dissection and did a good job.
They couldn't find it on their own, huh?
Couldn't find it on their own. They'd cut through them already. But anyway, we had a lot of good fun. And during that time, the declaration of World War II was declared. And it had already been declared in Europe, but we joined in 1943 or 4. When was it? I've forgotten when
Let's see.
America got into the war.
43 is when we started.
43.
August 17th.
And I was walking down the sidewalk one day and heard that Franklin D. Roosevelt had died in the swimming pool down in Georgia. Well, to make a long story short, I went there in 44 and Fay went there in 43. And on the either the December or January, she says one and I say the other. But I thought it was December. But I had been home and I had Frank's 34 Chevrolet there on campus. And I called her one day and I said, how are your plans for tomorrow night? She said, well, it depends on who wants to know.
Smarty.
I don't know whether I told her who I was before that or not. But anyway, I told her who I was. And she said, well, I think I can.
You asked if my plans were flexible, I
Yeah,
think.
that's right. Her plans were flexible. And she said, well, I think I can bend them a little bit. So we at first decided that we were going to the mountains. But after and Jack jumped and Fay's good friend Katie Lowry, Cat Lowry, went with us, and we changed our mind after we all four started talking and went to the beach at Long Beach.
The amusement park in Long Beach.
Yeah. And that's a park where you walk along and the air jets come up and blow the girls' skirts up.
Did you know that?
And, well,
Oh, yes, I knew.
That's why you went.
No,
And it was rather,
and you didn't.
I haven't finished it. So go ahead and say what you want
He's
to say.
getting there.
Well, we were not allowed to wear slacks, pants. And so I knew it would be cold in the mountains, and I had some knee-length
Long
underwear,
handles.
long handles, and I wore that under my skirt. And when we decided to go to Long Beach, I worried all the way down there about that air jet blowing my skirt up and showing those long underwear. So fortunately, that wasn't the only underwear I had on. And when we got down there, the first thing I did was to head to the restroom and take those long handles off and put them in my purse. That's about all I remember of that first date.
Well, I don't remember much about the first date. But after that, we got better acquainted. We started going to breakfast together after she got off work at night. She worked up on the cabin, not cabins, what they call them,
Oh, cottages.
cottages behind the sanitarium.
They're still there, by the way.
Are they?
Yeah, and they were, what do they call it, not smoking, but
Oh,
potting,
oh.
where they smoked orange grove to keep them from freezing.
Smudge pots?
Smudge
Smudge
pots.
pots.
Yeah. And she worked at night, and that's when they smudged, and she got quite black during the night. She'd come to,
Because we had to go out to the cottages and walk, out in that,
Through that
Smoky
smoky
atmosphere,
haze, huh?
yeah.
Yeah.
and that's where we got acquainted. And then we started walking in the evenings around the hill. That was the only place you could walk up there, besides up and down the hills. Then we got acquainted, and it was 2 years later, wasn't it? Let's see. What year did I ask you to marry me? 1945?
no, 46, the
46.
beginning of 46.
Yeah.
No, it was
May.
about April or May.
It was May 23 or 4 of 1946 that we were in the parlor, the girls' parlor, and I had bought a album of Fritz Kreisler, which she liked very much, and gave it to her. And we were in there playing that album on this, I think it was a Friday afternoon, I'm not sure. But anyway, we were playing the album, and something hit me or something, I don't know, but I got on my knees.
Cupid flew over, huh?
Got on my knees and asked her to marry me. And she just sat there for a minute, but she expected it because she said I had talked a little bit about it beforehand. So she said yes, to my big
Woohoo.
surprise.
Oh, you were surprised.
But anyway, she graduated from nurses class in 46.
Just a little
Yeah,
bit
it
after
was-
that then.
Yeah,
huh?
it was
Yeah.
just a little bit, let's see, he proposed, I think it was in
It was in
maybe
May.
May, I guess.
And you were graduating in June.
The graduation was in June or the 1st of July, but
Well, that's
We
what
didn't.
motivated him. He knew you were about to leave.
No,
we
she
didn't.
had several days to fill up. She didn't get through until August
well,
1st of September.
the class work went on until, it was supposed to be 3 full years, and I started in August or September, and it had to go, it was
Okay.
that long then.
And so Bernice and Mother had been out there to visit us. I think that was the time, and we loaded up our, that was the end of,
No,
that
that was
was
when
my
you got
graduation.
through.
But anyway, we went back home, and Mother paid for our reception. We didn't have any much decorations for the wedding, did we?
We had some
Few
flowers,
flowers.
yeah.
And
I borrowed my wedding dress
Whose
from
was it?
Edwina, her name was Smith, no,
Meister.
Meister. Her maiden name was Smith,
Uh-huh.
and she was Edwina Smith Meister. And then she lost him, and she married somebody else, and then he died, and she's married now again.
Huh.
she's west now.
Yeah.
But anyway, we came back, and then we moved to the city because at that time 2 years was at Loma Linda and 2 years down at the White in the county. And so when we moved down there, we moved in Frank's house in the top
In his attic.
attic. They had partial apartment up there. They had a bedroom and a little alcove with a bed in it and a little kitchenette. And we lived up there.
And no bathroom.
No bathroom,
We
no
had to-
refrigerator.
We had to go down an outside stairway to the bathroom down in the house.
Joyce is complaining, y'all skipped right over the wedding. You didn't hardly even talk about the wedding.
I
Well,
don't remember much about it, to tell you the truth.
Well, where was it?
it was in
In
Memphis.
Memphis,
We went to
yeah.
Memphis and got married.
Where in Memphis? What, at a church
At the
or?
First Seventh Adventist Church on
And
Remember
who
the
did,
one
who
on
performed
Dunlap
the
and
wedding?
Parkways, on Parkway and Dunlap by the old waterworks.
Is that gone now, that church?
And last I knew it was still there. Oh,
I
black-
think
black
somebody told us
congregation
it had
had
been
it.
torn down though. But anyway, that night, we had, the night before, we had practiced, and just as we began practicing, her maid of honor came in as a matron of honor.
Oh,
Her cousin,
My cousin,
Billy Rhodes, had come in and
when she walked in the back of the church just as we were beginning to
practiced.
Start the
have the
practice.
rehearsal, and she had this strange man behind her. And knowing Billy, I thought to myself, she's picked up that taxi driver. But she'd picked him up
A little bit while earlier, huh?
yeah, as a husband. Not much earlier, just a few days.
Wow.
Wow, and they eloped.
I don't know if they eloped or what, but anyway,
And they stayed married.
no, they didn't.
Oh.
Not, they did for
They
several
did for
years,
10 years
but
or so.
he was a
Alcoholic and
Oh, mercy.
scoundrel.
rascal.
Well, who performed your wedding?
Elder Stanley Schleifer.
Yeah.
Schleifer.
And the night of the wedding,
Okay.
we were there, and it was
The wedding was supposed to be at 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock. And at 10 minutes of 8, he wasn't there. And I was in a room that you had to go across the front platform to get to the other side where the telephone was. So I crawled behind a
Little
little
fence-like thing.
and
Picket fence
went over there to
railing.
the phone, and I
No,
called
it
him.
was
I said,
solid.
Elder Schleifer, you coming to the wedding? Yeah, I'll be there. I said, well, it's supposed to start at 8 o'clock. And he said, well, y'all go ahead, and I'll be there. So we did. And he walked in.
He says, I thought it was supposed to be
Well,
at 8:30.
8:30. But anyway, we got married.
Did he have a son named Brad Schleifer?
No,
I went to
think
school with a
that
Brad
that is his
Schleifer.
grandson. I think.
Okay.
I think he was related somehow.
Yeah.
And he married, his son, Stanley Schleifer, married Peggy King of Memphis. But anyway, time marched on, and we were there with that old Dodge, 1937 Dodge, and we walked down the stairs, and Gilbert and Howard had painted it for us. And we walked down the steps from Mother and Dad's apartment up on the top of 406 Waldron, and that kid was the kid that lived down below them, had a key in his hand and walked all the way down the side of our car and scratched that key into the car. And I walked out there and I took him by the shoulder and I said, and hit him in the seat of the pants. I said, you go tell your mama what you did. And he did, and she did. She sued us.
Oh, mercy.
Wow.
And we were at church the next day, and Dan was at home, and police came up and impounded our car. So it wasn't in my name, it was in Frank's, so they couldn't do much about it. But anyway, he sent I think $125 he put up for bond to the car. And a week later, Dan drove it down. We left and went to Texas. And a week later, Dan drove it down and met us in Texas
I don't know how we got to Texas.
on the bus.
Okay.
So did they drop the suit or what?
Well, 10 years later,
Huh.
No, not that long, but oh dear, he was
Dusty
do
Rhodes,
you remember Gloria and
Hobson Bennett.
Hobson Bennett?
Yeah.